Hello, everyone. You are listening to the Open to Happiness podcast. I am your host, Nicoleta, and today I will be joined by Mike Vatter, podcast host, board member of OCD Jacksonville, sufferer of OCD himself, based naturally in Jacksonville, USA. Today, we will be talking about the relationship between OCD and happiness, and I'm so looking forward to explore this with you, Mike. Welcome, and it's lovely to have you here on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Nicoletta. It's wonderful to be here, and I appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, thank you. You're very welcome. So, Mike, before we start diving into OCD and what's joining this kind of suffering in our lives, let's find out a little bit about you. Who are you, and how was your journey in life so far?
Oh my goodness, that's that's a loaded question, isn't it? Well, I guess a little bit about me. I was adopted as an infant, and at 40 years old, my mother gave me a gift of a genetics test. I don't know if it's something that's worldwide, but here in the U.S. we have a kit you can mail away called 23andMe.
I've done
And okay, and you spit into a tube and you mail it away, and they send you back your results about a month later.
Yeah.
And I did this kit. I did it live on Facebook because I thought it would be interesting for my friends and family who are scattered around the world to see what I was doing on this journey of 40, after 40 years of going to the doctor and not being able to answer simple questions like what is your family history, what is your medical history, do you have a family history of diabetes and heart disease and cancer and all these things. I always had to answer the questions. I don't know. And years and years of doctors saying, what do you mean you don't know? And I'm adopted. I don't know any family history. Because I was born in 1977 and I was adopted in a closed adoption back then. And there was no such thing as an open adoption unless you were extremely wealthy. And,
Yeah.
they didn't give you any history of your family. And so my mom gave me this kit. And so I spit into a tube and a month later, I revealed my results on Facebook Live. And people actually tuned in. They were very interested. Total strangers tuned in too, because I thought it was fascinating. And I revealed my results, that I'm 10% this and 5% that and 80% this and whatever. And my husband joked that he thought I was going to be, different aliens from Star Wars, because he's a huge Star Wars fan. And he thought I would be part Wookiee and part Ewok and all these things. And we found that, that I'm Sephardic Jew, and that I am also British, and I'm also French, and small percentages of all these things,
right? Yes,
and large percentages of other things that we had no idea. And I don't know, about maybe that was probably, so my birthday's in April, so I think it was probably in so April, May, probably May, and then in October, I got a message through 23andMe that said I had some DNA relatives, and I kind of ignored that because it was like sixth cousins, and I didn't really care. And I was like, everyone has sixth cousins. Who cares about that? That's not really a connection. And mid-October of that year, and this is almost 5 years ago, I got a text message, and I wear a smartwatch, and on my smartwatch, I got a message that said, hi, I think I'm your sister. And my knees buckled.
wow.
I was with a friend, and I was leaving his apartment and on my way to meet a colleague for lunch, and my knees buckled, and I went into kind of a weird situation. I was kind of in shock and kind of not really sure how to feel. And my first thought was, this is a scam, because somebody saw this on Facebook Live and thought they're gonna, try to get some money out of me, or, play with me, or some internet troll. And I looked at the message and thought, okay, well, it's not real. And then I checked that she said in the message, I also sent you this exact same message through 23andMe's website. I know this is coming out of the blue, but I want you to know that I think I'm your sister. And I went immediately into the 23andMe app and read the message, and it was verbatim the same message. And I almost fainted. I went into a full panic attack, hyperventilating, sweating, all the things you go through in a panic attack. And if you or your listeners have never had a panic attack, I would equate it as, when I say a full-blown panic attack, it wasn't just, I'm nervous, I'm hyperventilating, I need to get out of this space. When I say a full panic attack, it's all the symptoms of the flu in about 20 minutes. I had that kind of panic attack. And my friend who I was with, he didn't know what to do, but he knew to get me to a seated position. He put me on his couch. He went and got like lavender oils and like started like, he was spraying the air with lavender oils. He was fanning me. He went and got an oscillating fan and plugged it in near me. And he was trying to like calm me down and keep me from getting flushed. He didn't know what was going on. So I handed him my phone. He immediately called the colleague that I was supposed to meet for lunch and said, he's not coming for lunch. I don't know what's going on, but there's a family emergency. That got me out of the lunch. And I processed this message from my now that I know half sister. And I said, okay, I need to respond to this. And I responded to her and we started texting. And it was 4 hours later that we finished this text conversation.
Wow.
And it turns out, now if I'm shorthanding this, I'm fast forwarding a little bit. OCD runs in my family, my genetic line. Asperger's runs in my genetic line. A lot of things involving general anxiety run in my genetic line. So I come by it naturally. And a lot of things that are in my creative, field. I love to paint. I love to draw. I love musical theater. I've been an actor off and on in community theater and throughout my schooling. All of that runs in my genetic family, my biological father, biological mother. They've all done creative things in their lives. And my biological father is gay. I'm gay. And my half sister works with, or at the time worked with LGBTQ persons who were adopted and have OCD and have general anxiety disorder. And she's a social worker, at the time was a social worker at the hospital where I was adopted.
Can't believe this.
And didn't know it. She didn't know it. She never left the town. She never left the town where I was born. And so all these things came to pass, and it was just, I was blown away by this. Now my adoptive parents, my parents, have met her, and we've become very close, and we stay in touch all the time. My adopted sister has not met her. It just didn't work out timing wise, but we've all become very close on social media. We've all, shared, we've all become connected in many ways. My husband has met them. She and her family have met. They came to Disney World, and they made a vacation out of Disney World. And so we all went to Disney World and met them and hung out for the day, and it was wonderful. So that's in a nutshell how I got to be where I am. And that's a very long answer, but yes. So that's kind of how I came to be this person who has explored his life through OCD and how it's connected, not just genetically, but how I reconciled my diagnosis of OCD at 36 with how it was genetically connected to me.
What a beautiful story. I'm so happy for you.
A very long story.
Yeah,
yes.
It doesn't matter. It's a powerful story. It talks about all of those details in our life scripts and personal histories that sometimes we don't see.
Yes,
and you talk about them really, really nicely. I'm happy that now you've connected with your half sister. What was it like for you to actually be contacted by a potential half sister?
Oh, I was in complete shock. I didn't. Well, I knew obviously that I'd been adopted. My parents had told me that as early as they could, as early as I would understand it. They didn't hide that from me at all, and they told me, very early on, because they wanted me to be aware of this. And so I knew it was something that was going to happen, at some point, that I was probably going to know about my biological.
Yes.
But it never occurred to me that I might have biological sister or siblings, because my thought process was, if someone gave up a child for adoption, why would they continue to have other children? And so it never occurred to me I would have siblings. And it was just circumstantial. And that's not my story to share, why they continued to have children, why there were other children involved. But I did have a shock, quite frankly. It was a shock to my system to find out I had a biological sister. She's younger than I am. So they gave me up for adoption and then had my half sister. So it was a shock, but all of it obviously worked out.
Yes, it did work out well, and you're laughing and you're smiling, so you're positive about it. You take it
wonderful, wonderfully positive now. Absolutely, yeah. Like I said, it was a shock, but it wasn't a bad shock, and it all was. It was all meant to be the way it turned out. My family who raised me, who I call my parents, they are my parents in every sense of the word, other than biologically. They gave me a wonderful life, and if my birth parents had not given me up, for lack of a better phrasing, I wouldn't have had the life that I have. And I thank them every time I speak to my biological mother or father. I tell them, thank you so much for giving me this life, because there were alternatives. They could have kept me. I could have gone with one or the other of them, because they're not together. And I could have had a much different life, and I may not have turned out to be the person that I am.
Yes. It's about counting our hardship and blessings at the same time.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. So you're talking about OCD now through the perspective of genetic inheritance. Your family, some members of your family have had OCD, have struggled with this. Your sister, although you haven't known her at that time and she didn't know you exist and you didn't know she existed, she was actually drawn into this kind of world, working as a social worker with people that suffered from OCD. How do you explain this? Because this is quite hard to comprehend for most people, especially those that don't really believe fully or as the only answer into the genetic inheritance.
Yeah. So my biological sister, her world of OCD is more of the general anxiety disorder, and her son has and like I said, I don't want to share their story too much, because it's not really my story to share, but he has seizures, and he has a bit of epilepsy, and he has some general anxiety as well. But our biological mother, which is the side that we share, our biological mother deals with anxiety as well, and there's OCD on her side of the family. So although she doesn't have OCD, it does come from that side of the family. And then my biological father has OCD and Asperger's and general anxiety disorder on his side of the family. So I definitely come by it honestly. But yeah, there's OCD is one of those disorders that there is a learned component, but there's also a genetic component.
And let's talk a little bit more about that, because obviously you've been through this journey of self-discovery, of learning about yourself. You lived with this, so you have the best experience that could be shared with others.
Right. So the learned experience is things that, like the compulsions and the habitual side of OCD, that you pick up as you deal with the obsessions. The compulsion side of OCD can, and this, I can only speak to my experience. I can't speak broadly for anyone else, but the compulsions can be learned behaviors, learned habits, learned behaviors, so to speak. So if, for example, I have the intrusive thought of if I don't want my mother to die, or I don't want my husband to get into a car accident today, I have to click. I'm going to click a ballpoint pen. I'll do it near the microphone so your listeners can hear it.
Yes.
I'm going to click a ballpoint pen. It's a magical thinking.
Yes.
It doesn't make any sense, and I hope your listeners understand what I mean by that. It's a magical thinking that if I click this ballpoint pen 3 times today, my husband will be safe.
Yes.
He won't get into a car accident.
Yes. It's your way of coping, really, in a way.
Right. It's
the way you
it's
learn
a lack
to
of
cope.
serotonin usually in our brains that says, and it makes no sense, it's not logical, and we know it's not logical. We as the sufferer know it's not logical, but our brain says, it's like a Jiminy Cricket that sits on our shoulder, or an angel and devil, if you think of like the old Bugs Bunny cartoons. The little devil on your shoulder says, if you want your husband, your dad, your mother, whatever, to be safe today, you have to click the ballpoint pen 3 times or your husband will die. Okay, well, obviously I don't want my husband to die, so I'm going to click the pen 3 times. Well, that's a temporary solution to an illogical, it's an illogical solution to a problem. So I click the pen 3 times. Well, that gives me temporary relief. So tomorrow I have to click the pen 5 times, because just in case 3 wasn't enough, I have to do it 2 more times, because for me, it's odd numbers. Other people, it might be even numbers. And then I think, well, the ballpoint pen worked, but now I should probably do something else just in case. And it's that just in case, or that what if, that is the OCD killer. It's like that, it's that maybe I didn't do enough. So today my OCD monster in my head says, well, you should probably also wash your hands 4 or 5 times just to be safe. Okay, well, I'm going to wash my hands 5 times then, because 4 is a bad number, 5 is a good number. So I click my pen 5 times and wash my hands 5 times. So then it compounds to, and I say learned behavior, because it's something that your very creative brain, this machine, this computer in our skulls comes up with that makes no sense. It's this weird thought to a imaginary problem that your brain says, okay, well, we did these 5 things yesterday, let's add 5 things today. And for some people, eventually they're doing 7 or 8 hours worth of compulsions just to squash this one thought, and they never get out of the house. Now, for me, my OCD is not that severe. I'm what they consider to be high functioning. And I always joke and say, I don't know what that means, high functioning. I can, I can hold down a job. I can get out of the house. I can smile and be happy with my life. But I'm also, 45 years into this, and I've been doing therapy and taking medications, and I take a serotonin, supplement, and I do the things I need to do. I do exposure response prevention therapy. But there are people who don't or can't do those things for whatever reason. And they have to tie their shoes 5 or 6 times before they leave the house. They have to change their shirts 10 times before they leave the house. And they never make it out the door. And they end up, if you think of Howard Hughes as the famous example, living in one room in their house and using the bathroom in jars and never leaving their bedroom. Because they can't get that compulsion, that obsession and compulsion relationship just right, and they never make it out the door of their bedroom, let alone their house. So yeah, it's a combination of the genetic coding that our parents give us, plus the learned behavior of the compulsion to make the obsession go away.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So
for me, and I've been able to deal with it, but for other people, they're not as fortunate.
Yeah, I am aware of that. And I suppose it's part of our journey to learn to cope with our own afflictions, with our own difficult ways of living and behaving and thinking. So now, is there a link between OCD and happiness? Has there been room for you in life for happiness?
You've got loaded questions today. Yes, I think there is. Absolutely. I think there's a link. I think there's a link between everything we do and happiness, right? But specifically with OCD, I think for me, the link is you have to choose happiness. In everything that we do, we have to choose the path that will get us to happiness. Excuse me. I thought I was going to sneeze. I didn't. But I think we have to choose that path to happiness, and that answer is different for every person. But for me, I didn't start medication for years for my OCD, because I said to my husband and I said to my family and my close friends, I said, I don't want the medication to dull the gregarious, outgoing, happy part of me, the creative side.
Yeah.
And if it does, tell me, because I may not notice. And if it dulls me, I want to get off it. if it just dulls the OCD, if it just dulls the monster in my head, I'll keep taking it. But if it dulls the best parts of Mike, I don't want to take it anymore. So they've been very good, and they've been my team, my rally, and they've said, you're good. You're still the Mike we love and adore. So I feel like it's working for me. But I made that conscious choice to say, if I'm going to start medication to make my life easier, I still want to be a happy person. And so for me, I choose happiness. It's not a conscious choice every day, but it's a conscious choice frequently.
Yeah.
And today I chose to come on your show, and was I nervous about it? Absolutely. Did I sleep well last night? Not particularly, because I was a little nervous about this, but I still chose to come on here and deliver a message to your listeners and people who maybe need to hear that you can be happy and live with OCD. And there is a conscious choice to happiness. I think that conscious choice is different for every person, but for me, it's finding that creative outlet. It's finding what it is that you love to do and keep doing it. For me, it's painting. I think I mentioned earlier, it's singing at the top of your lungs in the car, singing in the shower.
Yeah.
I have 5 cats. Well, 4 cats. We just lost one of our cats. She was 20 years old. We lost her a couple of weeks ago. So we have 4 cats. I just get used to saying 5. We have 4 cats. And they bring me, immeasurable joy. I love them like children because they're just, they climb on everything and they they bounce around the house.
Very
And,
joyful. Yeah.
yeah, 2 of them are little kittens, so they're getting into everything now. But I choose to bring joy into my home, and what brings more joy than baby animals?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Observing what's actually happening around us. It's about
Yes.
tapping into those little moments, as you described,
Yeah.
that can actually bring the joy and happiness.
I think I
So,
was a Disney princess in a former life. I surround myself with animals and small humans to help
really?
bring me joy.
Wow.
My husband and I have 6 godchildren, because he has nieces and nephews that he was made the godfather of, and then together we've become the godfathers of other friends and family members' children. So we have 6 godchildren between us, and
Wow.
they bring us immense joy. We have our favorites. We're not supposed to say that, and I won't say
Yes,
which ones,
no, no.
but we do have our favorites, and
Yeah.
they bring us immense joy as well.
Wow. And it's hard work as well, isn't it?
Yes.
It's a lot of
It can be.
responsibility, but it's beautiful. It's beautiful
Yeah.
because it's an important role that we have in life.
Oh, of course.
Just mentoring them and guiding them. So beautiful, and watching them grow and develop into adults. So happiness for you is just being connected with yourself and being able to do what you enjoy and listen to what's coming from inside of you.
It really
Uh,
is.
yeah.
It's people say, dietitians will tell you to eat what your body craves. I'm not good at that. I self-care for me. I've never been good at self-care. When someone says eat what your body craves, well, my body's always craving chocolate donuts and ice cream. So if I ate
Yeah.
what my body craved, I would weigh 600 pounds.
Yeah.
But I intake what my body craves, which is joy. And I find joy in, like I said, little animals and small people, which is children. The children and animals in my life, they bring me joy, and that's where I find my happiness.
So great. So when you feel that joy and the happiness, where do you feel it? Do you feel it in your body, in your mind, or in your soul?
Oh, my
In your
soul for
soul?
sure.
In your
Yeah,
soul.
because that just encompasses it's like an aura almost, not
Yeah.
even really my soul, it's my aura. I've been told this 3 times that I can remember in my life. I think once I was 10 or 11 years old, and the last 2 times, one was just about a month ago, and the other time was a couple of years ago, complete strangers stopping me on the street and telling me that I have a good energy. And that to me is almost a watershed moment. And it's I, I don't know if this translates, and I hope it does. There's a character in New Orleans mythology, almost like almost like a witch or a like a jazz history of the old hunched over Black woman who sits on the bench and speaks to spirits, like a Minerva kind of character who communes with spirits in the graveyard, and like old New Orleans jazz history. And she looks like a bag lady, but in the stories of like old New Orleans jazz, she's like a medium almost. And she will stop people and say, don't go home today because something bad's going to happen to you, or go play the lottery. And she's almost like a medium or a
Mm-hmm.
telepath. And she's in the Princess and the Frog Disney movie. She's one of those characters. She's like the fates of old Shakespeare,
Right.
kind of rolled into one character. And she kind of has this energy, right? So when I was about 11 years old, I was in an old part of town, and I think we were in Philadelphia or Harrisburg, somewhere in Pennsylvania, because my dad's family is from there. And a woman stopped us. We were shopping. My mom and I were shopping with my sister, and she stopped. She seemed to be a bag lady, a homeless woman, and she stopped us, and she just said, "You have great energy." And I know she kind of freaked us out, but it was a compliment. She wasn't panhandling. She wasn't looking for anything in return. She just said, "You have great energy. Always keep that." And we were like, well, that's kind of freaky to tell a 10-year-old kid, but okay. But I remember feeling this sense of pride when she said that. And a couple of years ago, I was visiting a client in a maximum security area. It was a place where they build airplane parts. And I do marketing, a freelance marketer. And I was visiting a client, and the security guard was waiting for the client to come down and get me to take me into the facility. And the guard said, "Man, you give off great energy. Has anyone ever told you that before?" He said, "You just carry yourself. We have this great energy. You just have this aura about you." And I was like, wow, that's the second time someone's told me that. And then about a month ago, my husband and I were shopping in this old part of Jacksonville, this old artsy, kind of bohemian area of Jacksonville, called Five Points. It's a historic area. And a woman stopped us to ask if we would sign up for her charity newsletter or some charity she was doing. And I said, well, not today. We're in a huge hurry, but give me your flyer and I'll do it when I get home. I'll look into it. And she said, "You just have this great energy. I love the energy you're putting off." And I was like, okay, this is the third time. And I love threes. It's an odd number. So
Yeah.
it's like, that's a good sign too. But I just thought that's something I carry with me too, is that even on my worst day, and I was having a bad day that day, the last time this happened, I was having a really bad day. I didn't even want to stop and talk to her. But she said, "You have this great energy. You're giving off this wonderful energy. This vibe you give off is just, magnetic." And I was like, okay, it must be something that I give off in the right moment or at the right time or to the right type of person. And so that it's an aura thing. To answer your question, when I feel joy, or even when I'm not feeling joy, when someone needs joy, I can exude it unintentionally, I guess.
Mm.
And people feel it. And so that to me is a big thing too. When you have happiness, people feel it, even if you don't feel it yourself. When you exude happiness, others know it.
So precious to have people actually stopping you
I know.
and
It does freak you out the first couple
wow.
of times.
Yes. No, but there's
Yeah,
something there. I mean, it's something to
yeah,
celebrate, to enjoy and be
yeah.
happy about. So that's
Yes,
gonna probably uh, give you a bit more happiness, even more happiness.
agreed. Agreed.
So
Mark Twain once said, "I could live off a good compliment for 3 months." And to me, I've lived off that you give off, good energy. I've lived off that for 40 something years.
beautiful. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think we need that. We need energy is very important to us, isn't it? So it must be that you are on a different frequency that people maybe want to tap into. They feel good
maybe.
around you because
I'll
they
take it.
need that and they don't know how to get themselves there. And
Yeah,
of course, being around you, they feel encouraged. Oh, look, this is a
yeah,
nice vibe. This there is something about this man. I like to come closer. So
yeah.
if you're working
You're
with
making me
yourself,
blush.
no, 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 but that's it. That's the reality, and we need to be able to acknowledge when when there are wonderful things, in our lives. Maybe because you function on a higher level of consciousness, because you
Maybe.
function from love, from acceptance, from understanding. You've been
Yeah.
scarred yourself as an adopted child. I can
Yeah.
relate with this a little bit because my parents took me to the grandparents, so I was brought up by them. I didn't have that connection with my biological parents. It's not the same because I was still somehow in the family, but I think it's kind of the same in a way. You're
It
still
is.
not with your biological parents, you're still with
Right.
someone else.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an interesting way of actually exploring a little bit our past and our life history. um, Sorry, I interrupted you. You wanted to say something. I don't want to
No, no,
steal
no,
your
you're fine.
ideas.
I did. We were talking over each other, but I was going to say, people have asked, and my psychologist has actually asked me that too, about being, the innate scarring that happens with adoption, and it's something I've never actually felt that I was deprived of anything, but I know that there is a psychological scarring that happens, and I've never felt that. My parents who raised me, my parents, have always made sure that I never wanted for anything, and I was never spoiled. I've never felt that I was in need of anything, but I also never felt that I was pampered in any way.
Okay.
I have never lived a sheltered life, but I know that there is a trauma that happens to an infant during that process of, leaving the womb and going straight to someone else. And there was
Yes.
a very short period of time that I was in foster care. And of course, I don't remember it at all. But I know that that does something to the psyche. But I don't think to me, I don't think that that's left any sort of lasting impression other than the growing up of the wondering of where did I come from, and who was I before, but
Yes.
it's not a negative scarring. Some scars, people hear scars and they hear trauma, they hear bad, they hear negative. Scars aren't always bad. You hear warriors talk about battle scars, and if you've won the battle, if you fought valiantly, that scar can be a reminder of something good.
Yes.
And to me, I think not all scars are bad. So to me, it's just kind of a mark of where we've been. And to
Mhm.
me, I've never thought of it as being a bad thing. And I've had psychologists, like I said, who've said, well, that's very traumatic. I'm like, it may be psychologically traumatic, but it's not personality traumatic.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Because you can make a
yeah,
choice.
yeah,
You can make a choice what you think about yourself, about life, about your past right now. You can make
yeah,
a choice how you want to live your life and what do you
absolutely,
want to be surrounded with in your life. Yeah, I mean, your approach is so refreshing and so positive. I absolutely love it, and I hope that the listeners would really enjoy listening to you further, because I think when we talk about people suffering with OCD, we all have our own ideas about what OCD is about.
hmm,
Even myself as a practitioner, obviously I meet all sorts of people that display all sorts of ways of managing their own suffering inside. And that's not the typical way of understanding what OCD is.
right,
OCD is different for every single individual, as you mentioned, and everyone is reacting to what's happening within them in their own way and
yeah,
find their own coping mechanisms. But it's beautiful to explore that you don't allow whatever scars or wounds or whatever happened into your past to define what's going on in your life right now. So that shows ownership. That
right.
shows responsibility. You
And
have
we
the
all know,
ability to respond to
yeah,
what's happening right now.
absolutely. And we all know people, and I've got someone very close to me who always seems to blame everyone else for their problems.
The
You
victimhood
know,
mentality. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yes. And they never take their own responsibility for anything. I do this because, or I did that because, or so and so made me, or
Yeah.
whatever. And
Yeah.
and you think, when are you going to own your own actions?
Mm.
You're 50 years old and you've never owned your own actions, or you're 80 years old, you've never owned your own actions, and that's fine if you're up to adolescence, I would say that maybe that's okay to get away with,
Yes.
but at some point you've got to start, taking on your own
Yes.
responsibility. And I think that's one thing that therapy with OCD has taught me is, and not that this wasn't instilled in me already by my parents, but I think it's something that OCD, ERP therapy teaches you is you have to expose yourself, exposure response prevention therapy. You have to expose yourself to the thing, whether it's a fear, a phobia, whether it's a thing that is triggering to you. You have to expose yourself to it in small increments to get past it. If I work with somebody in one of our support groups who is his biggest trigger is traveling by vehicle, whether it's a car, train, plane, whatever. It's not that he can't get into a plane and go somewhere. It's once he gets out of the plane, he has a small panic attack.
Mm-hmm.
And it's every single time. He gets off a train, subway, taxi cab, small panic attack. And it's gotten to the point that he's so used to the panic attack that he just knows it's going to come. And
he's creating it himself.
Almost. It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes.
It's like, but he knows if he says to himself beforehand, I'm going to have a panic attack when I get there, it's lessened. So he does the exposures. He does prepare himself for it, which is, that's great. But he sometimes will say, well, how do I get past this? And I'm like, there's no cure for OCD, but you have to keep doing the exposures. But he also never goes to therapy, which is the other thing. And I'm like, you have to do the exposures with a therapist.
With everything. Yes.
Right. And not that he's not trying, but everyone has their own, process.
Yes.
But then we've got other, I've got other people that I know who are, they call their therapist for everything, whether it's, I've got a paper cut. How do I deal with this? And you're like, okay, slow down. You can't call your therapist for everything. But I've learned with me, it's, I call my therapist for check-ins, almost like a tune-up. Like you take your car in for an oil change every 10,000 miles. I call my therapist on a schedule every 3 months. I'm like, okay, let's check in. I've done, I used to go every week. Now I go every 3 months. And sometimes it's a Zoom call. Sometimes it's a phone call. Sometimes it's in person, but I gauge it based on how I'm doing. You've got to fine tune that engine.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be the same tune-up every time. You gauge it based on where you are and how you're doing. So I think that's all very important to mention to your listeners, because people are at different levels who are listening to this. They're going to say, well, I do this, is that okay? Or I do that, is that okay? The answer is yes. And the answer is also no, because it depends on who you are and where you're at.
Yes, absolutely. And I appreciate the fact that you encourage listeners to actually look into the multidimensional treatment available for us. Try everything, because it doesn't mean that if for other people hasn't worked, it might not work for you. I think it's really good to remain open to everything.
Yeah, and medication does not work for everybody. I know people who tried all the medications on the market and none of them work. Well, that
true.
may not be your thing.
True. That's true.
Yeah. Therapy
so now,
may be the best thing for you, but not for somebody else.
Absolutely. That's why we shouldn't be forcing anyone, and we shouldn't be giving panaceas, because there's nothing in this world that would resolve OCD overnight.
Right.
Just following these 2-3 steps. We are so unique in our experience, in the way we manifest life. We open to life. You use this word a lot. It's about being open to connect with yourself, to understand yourself, to grow, to try different treatments. The question is now, how do we cope with difficult times in life when we suffer with OCD? Can we still find moments of happiness?
Yes, with a question mark. I don't know. In the moment, that's, if you ask me during a panic attack, the answer is no. But I overall, the answer is yes. Of course we can. It doesn't always feel like it, but of course we can. I mean, we can always find joy and happiness. To me, I use humor as a defense mechanism, and I've done it my entire life. I've done it well before I was ever diagnosed with OCD, and sometimes inappropriate humor is the only way to go. And I've been the person at a funeral who I don't even mean to do it. I was at a funeral and we were outside in the Florida heat, and we were waiting for the doors to the church to open. And I said, "Oh, can we please go inside? I'm dying out here." And I realized I said I'm dying at a
Yeah.
funeral. And people looked at me like I had four heads. And then they all started laughing because they realized I didn't mean to say it. It was
Mm.
inappropriate, but it was funny.
Yes. Yes.
And it's sometimes laughter through tears is the best emotion,
Mm.
And
It is.
that's what my point in telling that short story is. Sometimes you have to laugh through the hard times. And that's a shortcut to joy. And sometimes you can't laugh. Sometimes laughing is the worst thing you can do in the moment, but you find the joy after the fact. Pain plus time equals comedy is what, I'm not sure who said that, but some famous comedian said that, maybe George Carlin, or I don't know, but you let enough time pass and you can laugh about just about anything. But yeah, I think we can always find the joy in any situation if we let ourselves do it. And that's the thing is, I was actually texting with one of my exes, and from years and years ago. Obviously my husband and I have been together for a long time, but I was texting with an ex the other day because he wanted to let me know that he's moved on and found somebody new, and he's gone through several relationships over the years, and he said, I'm dating somebody and we're really serious. And I said, that's awesome. And we kind of rehashed some of the stuff from our relationship that didn't work out. And we got deep really quickly in our texting. We didn't mean to, but we were talking about things that went south in our relationship. And I said, I'm really sorry. I did not mean for this to go that deep. And I was just wanting to kind of touch base with you and see how you're doing. And he said, no, it's fine. I'm glad that you did. I appreciate the feedback. And we started laughing about things like, he said something about a song that reminded him of me. And I said, well, the song that reminds me of you is Let It Go from Frozen, because I really feel like you need to let some stuff go that you've never let go, and we laughed about that. It was like,
Mm.
it was a funny thing. I mean, it was text, so I don't know if he was really laughing, but he said LOL, but I was laughing, and so I found humor in that. I think even in a dark place, even in a relationship that I considered emotionally abusive, I'm now able to laugh about. I thought it was funny. And I can move on from that. I had some closure finally from a relationship that I never got closure from before, that I could look at this text and say, you know what? Let it go. and I truly mean it for myself, and I hope that he can too. But that example is, yeah, it's a dark time, and it's something that I obsessed over that relationship every single day for years. I couldn't hear a song or watch a movie or wear certain what's the word I'm looking for, articles of clothing, without thinking about that relationship, good, bad, or indifferent, every single day for the longest time, because I had no closure.
Yes.
And that, just having that little bit of closure, over the last few days of one of his exes actually texted me and said, he's seeing somebody. And then that prompted a conversation that I thought would never happen.
Okay.
And I said, okay, yeah, I let it go.
Yeah. I'm so happy to hear that you're actually able to think of your past experiences that have been quite difficult, some of them, as you described them, torturing sometimes, especially relationships, when they leave some unfinished business there in the past. It's kind of hard for us to cope because they remain in us. It's like a remembrance, continuous remembrance. But I'm happy to hear that you're actually finding your own way around sorting things out and tidying up whatever's going on in your life. And the letting go is so important. And I think sometimes we ruminate a lot on past experiences because we haven't understood. There is a little step in front of the letting go, and that's the understanding. We need to really understand what happened from all perspectives, not just from our little box. And then once you let go, then it stays in the past, and you can just surrender to everything and start learning the lessons and just look at everything from distance. And I feel that even with OCD or any other kind of affliction we might have, it's very helpful to embrace
Yes.
this attitude. So thank you for sharing this with our listeners.
Oh, of course. And what I was going to say about OCD and the relationship, our OCD, relationship OCD is
Yes.
one of the things that I do suffer from, is one of the subtypes I suffer from. And it's hard because I was trying to explain this to my parents, actually, at one point. Our OCD, for me, assigns equal importance to almost all relationships. And it's like spinning a roulette wheel or the Wheel of Fortune game.
Mm.
On Monday, my husband is the absolutely most important person in my life, and he may still be on Wednesday, but then all of a sudden on Thursday, it's my the guy at the UPS store, the clerk at the post office, is all of a sudden the most important person in my life. I don't know why. My OCD chose that this is now the most important person in my life, and I need
Yeah.
to know, did he get home okay? Did he eat dinner today? Did he, get enough caffeine in his system to do his job correctly? I need to know that Tony is doing the best he can do today and make sure that his life is perfect, and nobody else matters today. That's the guy who I'm focused on today. Tony is the most important relationship in my life this Thursday. But Friday, it's my mom. And then Saturday, it's Nicoletta. It's just my brain decides that's who it's going to be.
Thank you for
And
including me.
yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely. Because that's who my brain decides is the most
Yes.
important person today. That's the
Yes.
relationship I have to focus on today. And so I have to make that conscious choice. Well, I don't really know the clerk at the post office that well. And do I need to focus on him? I mean, does it matter in my life if he gets home safely today? No. I mean, is he a human being that I care about in the realm of the world? Yes, in the sense that he's a fellow human and I do
Yeah.
care about him. But if he doesn't have dinner tonight, will it affect my world? No. Do I need to spend more than 10 minutes thinking about him today? No. My husband, my godchildren, my parents, my sisters, they're the ones I need to focus on. Right now it's Nicoletta, right?
Yeah.
But
Well, yeah.
in the whole scheme of the world, the clerk at the post office is not the person I need to be worried about. So I need to do what I need to do to turn that part of my brain off today.
Mm.
And it can't be a compulsion. It can't be clicking my pen or washing my hands or flicking my light switch to make that compulsion go away. It's sitting with that thought. Okay, am I worried about Tony today? No, I'm not worried about Tony today. I like Tony. He's a nice guy. Now let it go. And that's the ERP side of the OCD, thought and compulsion.
Mm.
But yeah, it can't be more than that, or I will ruminate and obsess like I did with the breakup that I did every single day for 4 or 5 years of thinking, when am I going to get closure? So you have to make that conscious choice to let it go, or
Yeah.
or you're going to be sitting on the therapist's couch for the next 10 years
Yeah.
talking about the exact same relationship
Yeah.
every single
Yeah. Well, so well said. Absolutely. It
your
is a
therapist doesn't
choice.
want to hear the same conversation every time you come in either.
No. They want variation. They want
Right.
difference. Yeah, beautiful. So I'm so intrigued by this relationship OCD. Maybe we can talk about this
Sure.
some
Yeah.
other time. Only focusing on this because I think this is very interesting. I love the
Yeah, that's
concept.
a tough one. It's a hard
Yeah,
one to conceptualize.
yes, it is. It is. It's very specific, isn't it?
Yes.
And it's shaped by that particular nature of the relationships that one has had, which is quite
Yes.
hard, I would imagine, for me as a therapist to be able to come closer to that kind of world in time. But it's interesting that you consider it and you explain about it and you share a little bit how it plays out in real life. I mean, I found this conversation, I could talk to you forever. I found this conversation so interesting, so pleasant. Your story is very rich, and I love the way you speak about your life experience in an accepting way and respectful way. So you have appreciation for your life with its blessings and hardship, and Yeah, that's so important. It's essential, I think, for keeping ourselves on the baseline, with
Yeah.
in good mental health and well-being. It's been such a wonderful conversation. Maybe share a few tips with our listeners now towards the end. How can they, when they suffer with OCD, any type, any shape, any form, any manifestation, how can they maybe manage their own condition, so they can enjoy life and they can allow for a bit more happiness to step through the doors?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the biggest thing is when you feel that anxiety rising in the pit of your stomach, or for me, it's actually in the small of my back and in the base of my skull, like that feeling of anxiety that's coming on, and it's right before you get a panic attack. It's that feeling, and anyone who suffers from it will know what I mean. It's that adrenaline rush, like you're going up the hill on a roller coaster. When you feel that coming on, plant yourself. Make sure both feet are flat on the floor, whether you're standing or sitting. Plant your feet, take deep breaths in, slowly, and deep breaths out, and find three things that you can see, three things that you can smell, three things that you can hear. They don't have to be pleasant. They don't have to be things that you like, but three things you can, with all your senses, three things you can see, hear, smell, and touch. Tactile things. Like I said, they can be gross, they can be pleasant, they can be, whatever they are. Just make sure they're things that you can actually, with your senses, feel and touch and see and smell. And then taste. It may just be feeling your teeth with the tip of your tongue. It could just be the aftertaste of your mouthwash, whatever it is, the last cigarette you touched, the last mint you had, whatever it was. Taste that. Three things. Even if you have to make it up and say, oh, I taste vanilla, whatever it is, and focus on those three things for each sense for 3 seconds each. And even if your magic number is an even number and you want to do 4, do 3 for each sense for 3 seconds each, and just let the anxiety pass through you as you're doing these 3 for each sense. 5 senses, 3 things for each sense. It's very simple, and it'll get you through the moment until the moment passes, and it'll feel like an eternity. I promise you, it'll feel like an hour. It'll take just a moment of your day. Let the anxiety pass through you, and then you're ready to tackle the next thing. Even if the next thing is just calling your therapist and making an appointment, even if the next thing is calling your mom or your best friend or your sibling and saying, I just need to talk to somebody right now. I need to vent. I need to get it out of my system. It helps you take the next step, and the next step gets you closer to that joy and that happiness.
Thank you so much for this grounding advice. Now, where can people find out more about you, Mike?
Oh, guess my my podcast is available on Stitcher and Audible for free. You don't have to subscribe. You get the free episodes, which every couple of weeks we release a new free episode. It's OCD SOS, which stands for OCD Sharing Our Stories. You can subscribe on all the major platforms, but like I said, we have 9 or 10 episodes always available for free on Audible and Stitcher. And if you want to see videos of my cats and me complaining with my husband about the various movies that we've watched, you can always find me on TikTok at Mike Vatter. And that's just for fun. But OCD Sharing Our Stories, OCD SOS is my podcast. And then OCD Jacksonville is our website and all of our social media handles. If you want to join any of our support groups, we'd love to have you. They meet via Zoom 3 times a month on Thursdays.
Oh, thank you so much, Mike.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mike. It's been absolutely fantastic to chat with you today. Big thanks to all of you listening, and many, many thanks to you, Mike, for joining me here today.
Thank you, Nicoletta. I've really enjoyed it.
That's it for now. Until next time, we are wishing you all good health and happiness.